Hello and welcome back to Lorcana Villain. My name is Baker, and today we're taking a look at two sets of top 8 deck lists under set 10 Whisper in the Well meta. And this is a very, very exciting one. We're going to be starting off by taking a look at SCG Con Las Vegas, which was a 10k CCQ, so the winner going straight to the North American National Championships, hosted by Star City Comics and Games. And this was a 356 person field. This event took place this weekend just gone. Now, for an event of this size, ordinarily, I would show the top 16 deck lists. However, at time of recording, we are missing some. There's actually some missing from the top 8 as well. Inkdex has 5 of the top 8, and I've been able to track down the other top 4 list and another one of the top 8 lists. So there will be one of the place 5 to 8 lists missing from that part of the review, but we are going to take a look at the one and only top 16 deck list that is available, because it's also Ruby Sapphire, and we haven't talked about that deck for a while, so that's going to be hype. And as you can see, my friends, start spreading the news. Red Purple is back, and I think I'm partly responsible. We're back. Maybe a little bit responsible. Doesn't really matter. What does matter is that Red Purple ate this event, taking both first and second place, and one of the top 8 deck lists that I've been able to track down is another Ruby Amethyst list. So very excited to get into them, and the rest of our available lists from this event being filled by a couple of dogs and one purple steel, along with, again, the Ruby Sapphire list that we'll take a look at. And the other event that we'll be taking a look at took place in Europe, over in Poland. We have Quest Tour, which was 84 players, and I do have the entire of the top 8 deck list, but as you can see, this set of lists are vastly different from the SCG Con that we'll be taking a look at, with 5 Amethyst Steel and 3 Blue Steel making out the rest of that. So that's going to be super interesting. So we're going to dive straight into it. A shout out to the channel sponsor, Matified. If you're looking for custom or foiled playmats, including those with my own Villain Club branding, then check out Matified. But let's take a look at the top 8 deck lists. So starting us off in first place, we have some good old-fashioned Ruby Amethyst. Anatoday, I apologise if I'm saying your name wrong, but a huge shout out to you, repping Red Purple and taking it home. Again, this was a 356 player event, and this person has stamped their invitation to the National Championship. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about Red Purple. Now, I'm not going to get too into this right now, but I also had my first round of the LC3, the Lorcana Cross-Continental Clash, which is a unofficial fan-ran event organised by Pavel and the people at Pixelborn, which just organises tournaments for well-known players, content creators, casters, etc., people in the Lorcana community, and they play on Twitch and YouTube just for fun, because we like to play and we like to watch some games. And this particular event, the winner gets to choose a charity to whom Pixelborn will be donating $5,000, so that's super awesome. But yeah, this is the first one where I have actually been participating as a player, and I had my first round match against Zach Bivens just a couple of days ago, and miraculously I won that match 2-1. Again, I'm not going to get too much into that. If you want to check out that match, I will link it below. It was streamed live on JDZ's Twitch, but he's also uploaded the match to YouTube, so go check that out. And I am planning to do a members-only video where me and Bivens are going to watch that match and talk about it. But basically, I was feeling really confident about Red Purple in general. I think I've moved away from Maleficence and anything high-end, and we're a Demona deck now. Shout out to people like SLTC, Fumbles, Attack for 2 Dave, and even people like Tiago and Bivens, who I was discussing Red Purple with like right at the beginning of the meta. But I think we just need to utilise the strength of Demona, who, if you don't know what she does, she's a 6-cost Ingable, 5/6 quest for 2. On play, you exert all opposing characters, and when you play her, both players also draw up to 3 cards, and she has that Stone by Day ability that all Gargoyles have. Well, she can't ready if you have 3 or more cards in your hand. So instead of worrying about dragons and like things like the Red purple Hades, the 7 cost, which is pretty cool. Like, we've got some okay fun tools in the high end, but I think we need to just utilize the power of Demona and be a go under deck. We've got incredible curves open to us. We've got the new Diablo, the 3/3 quest for 2, and we all remember Mr. Smee and how good he was. Obviously, there's some differences between him and Smee, but a 2 cost that's questing for 2 that has 3 damage, so is like good for trading with or whatever it's going to take it out, or can just contribute towards your challenges if you need to be the offensive player. He's just a really efficient quester. We've gone back to playing Sisus, who saw play in the past, just as a quest for 2 character. We can play on curve. The 4 willpower, it can be super tricky for some decks to get over. It's a really nice willpower to have for a 3 cost, and of course this strength can be a lot more depending on it. Even if your opponent only has like 2 cards in their hand and this is a 3/4, that's kind of just fine, but good odds for you to get to like 4/5 strength and be able to make some up trades with this. But it quest for 2 is the main point. Then we're probably curving into genies. Obviously, we've got Elsa to be on the offensive, who's as good as ever, but playing Headless Horseman, who we'll get to. One of the main reasons to play Ruby as it is. I am so high on this Headless Horseman. I'm ready to make my entire personality this Headless Horseman. So you just curve these high quest characters that can also challenge efficiently. And then if you're the player that gets to play Demona first, and you get to make all the efficient trades, you've seen send your Tinkerbell into their Calhoun or their 3-drop in some cases. You've got Lumiere to boost everyone up. Maybe you play Diablo and he's able to make a challenge into something and survive. If you played Sisu, then your opponent has at least 3 cards in their hand anyway, so your Sisu is hitting for 4. Maybe a 4-drop is something more offensive, like the Iago or the Hercules, which we'll get to. And if you played Horseman as well on 5, then every time you take a challenge, you get a gathering strength trigger, where all of your characters increase in strength. So maybe your 1-drop wasn't the Tinkerbell, maybe it's the Diablo, but you make your trade, you banish character. It doesn't even have to be trades, right? You make efficient challenges with your Diablo, your Cheshire Cat or your Sisu, your Iago, your 5-drop, and then your Diablo suddenly is hitting for 3 or 4. So we just have such strong Demona opens all purple piles up to these like really offensive curves where if you get to Demona first, you more often than not are just going to win the game. But Ruby benefits so much from, like, Diablo is such an important part of the puzzle just because it's a 2-quester. Lumiere was always, like, well, I say, look, like, for the last couple of sets, it's been one of the only real reasons to run a Ruby card in general, and he's still super efficient. And Diablo opening up this more offensive questing style, like, leaves room for Sisu to come back into the deck, and then from then on, like, it's genies, and it's all 2-questers, so we are all gas, no breaks, Yaramin! That's what Red Purple be these days. So I think that is the way that you build your red-purple decks, and you play into the power of Demona and you be a go under deck. And then there is some flexibility. Most decks playing the Cheshire Cat, which is, again, like, I've been on such a journey with this card, but I've been high on him for at least the last couple of weeks. 3-cost Inkable, 3/4 quest for 1, boost 2, so you can put the top card of your deck under the Cheshire Cat by paying 2 ink. And when you put a card under the Cheshire Cat, you get to move 2 damage from one character to another. Obviously, we've seen the power of Belle, who obviously quests for 2 and moves 3, which is relevant in some situations, but the Cheshire Cat, the 2 is often relevant enough, even just in Genie Wars, right? Where if your Genie goes into theirs, like if you curve Cheshire Cat into Genie and they turn their Genie sideways, then you can just challenge with their Genie, finish it off with the Cheshire Cat. So the 2 is relevant enough. The fact that this sits on the board and it makes your opponent, like, really think twice about if they're turning sideways, like, it really can be a board freezer. If you play it on turn 5 onwards, you can immediately utilize the attack. These they're so good in purple steel, in red purple, and again, a lot of that is the 4 willpower, right? Obviously, it's still getting banished by strength and things like that, but when it comes to, like, challengers, like, this Cheshire Cat, like, can just laugh in their face. Now, Dumbos I'm still playing for, but it has felt not great a lot of the time, where I've had real considerations about if I want to cut the Dumbo. But then you have board states and situations where you and your opponent both have, like, 1 or 2 characters on board, like little guys, or maybe like an evasive is the point I'm trying to get to. Maybe you've got an Elsa on the board. Your opponent has a Hades or a well-statted 2 or 3 drop that is an evasive and quest for 1, and you're just kind of in this top deck war. You find the Dumbo, and then more often than not, that you are going to end up winning the game just because of the amount of more cards that you're going to draw, and your opponent has to find an answer to the Dumbo as quickly as possible. So I've had thoughts about lowering the Dumbo count, but, like, just from a consistency factor, having that play open to you if you do reach top deck wars is just so good. So Dumbo's still here. Iago's best in the mirror, to be honest, because against purple steel, you almost never play it unless they're low on resources or you're, like, playing enough characters that they have to to make a choice. It can still be good, it's still well statted, but so easily removed by strength, right? But no one's playing Illusion Hate. There were times when we were playing Hypnotic Strength, which can double up in its uses, right? You can boost up a 1-drop to trade up. It draws a card anyway. It's only a 2 cost, but it was also good for targeting Iagos. No one's playing those anymore. But Iago's really best in the mirror match, because you look at this deck, like how many answers to Iago does this deck have, bar the Iago itself? Obviously, we've got things like Genies and Dumbos, and we can boost their strength with Lumieres, and Headless Horseman triggers, and Cheshire Cat moves, and like, that's a lot of pieces though, right? We don't have simple 1-card answers for Iago. So I think that's something that, like, as Red-Purple becomes more popular, I think you're going to start to see more Red-Purples taking in either those strengths or the They Never Come Back. That being said, maybe that's the reason that this player won, because they are running 2 copies. But spoilers, the other 2 Red-Purple decks that we're going to look at did not. So I think you're going to see more Illusion Hate as Red-Purple becomes more popular. And then things like libraries I've been playing, like you can just, like in a top deck board, again, this is another great card to draw. You can find places to, like, make favourable library plays, but the best use case for me has been against Prince Philip, which is not a good, like, again, we have no simple answers to Prince Philip, right? But if you can insulate yourself against the Prince Philip sweep and at least, like, restock your hand, then you just want to, like, you want to win the race against that deck, because, like, it's so difficult to answer a Philip. So yeah, I like the library, and that really makes out what I would say is like the main skeleton of set 10 Red-Purple. But we see some player preference cards here, some techs. We're seeing 3 copies of Peter Pan High Flyer, who's just a 3-cost 1/3 quest for 2 with evasive. You could also run the Tinkerbell, and I think it's probably better to run the Tinkerbell just because there are worlds where you can hide your red cards for the first, like, couple of turns. So I think it's better to run the Tinkerbell, but hey, if you like Peter Pan, have at it. But I do think this is a good choice, because I was fearing this in my match into Zach, who I was predicting to be on Purple Steel, and he was. Because if they're on the play, the Tinkerbell just sits there and quests forever, with my deck in particular, because, like, my evasive answers aren't until turn 4. So if they're on the play, they get to play their Tinkerbell, and then I play a 3-drop, they get to quest, then I play a 4-drop like a Genie, or something like that. Then sure, I can now, with Lumiere, I can take it out, or even a Headless Horseman. But by the time I get to Horseman, they've probably also played a Genie, and I need to get rid of that. So this can be an awkward card to get around, the Peter Pan or the Tinkerbell. So putting a lot of work here, just playing into being more aggressive and really wanting to play a quest for 2 character on that curve. So I respect it. We're also seeing a one-off Timothy Q Mouse, who quests for 2 if you've got another evasive on board. And again, if you are curving into Peter Pan, then you can quest straight away, or you can wait until turn 4 when you're much more likely to have an evasive character on board, or wait even longer just for the right turn. You're never going to quest with this if it's not questing for 2. I kind of like this only as, like, 9th 2-drop, because I only played 8 2-drops, and it has felt low for a while, and I feel like I want to add at least one more. I was playing around with things like Shere Khan, who's just a vanilla 3/3. There's also Vanellope Von Schweetz, who could be an answer to those pesky Peter Pans and Tinkerbells that I just said I was fearing, and is an evasive, of course, so works with Dumbo, and is a hero who works with Hercules, who we'll get to. This player opting for the one-off Timothy Q Mouse, I totally respect it if I just think of it as 9th 1-drop. In the 5-drop slot, very interestingly, we're playing Ursula, Whisperer of Vanessa. Now, we saw this come up in a green-purple build, but first time I'm seeing it in red-purple. She's a 5-cost Inkable 4/5 quest for 2, boost 1, and Slippery Spell. While there's a card under this character, she gets +1 lore and gains evasive. So, I had never, not for once had I considered this for my red-purple pile, but the more I think of it, the more I like it when I consider the mirror, because everything I was just saying about, like, how annoying Iago can be in the mirror and is potentially a reason to want to start teching these They Never Come Backs and Hypnotic Strengths. And the reason he's annoying is his stat line, like 4/6 takes out most evasives in format and lives to tell the tale. If this Ursula, like, if we can boost her and she's an evasive 4/5, that's an equally annoying stat line that we now can't just answer with Illusion Hate. And this goes questing for 2. She's got 1 less willpower, and you technically paid 2 more ink to get this online. I kind of like this, you know. There's a part of me that's thinking that I might try this out, so I think that's kind of spicy. And then we've got a one-off David Xanatos, Charismatic Leader, 6 cost inkable, 5/5, quest for 2. During your turn, whenever one of your characters is banished, draw a card. And whenever this character quests, chosen character gains rush this turn. Now, I've been quite high on this card, but specifically in Shark builds, whether you're red, purple, or red, blue. I think he's a solid character. He's inkable. 6 cost is very reasonable, especially if you're a blue deck that's playing Cinderella, or even in this deck that always wants to ink to 6 anyway for Demona. And yeah, suddenly being able to give rush to your Demona, your Iago, the Sisu, the Cheshire Cat, like a lot of things here would absolutely love to be rushed. And that first ability where you draw cards if one of your characters is banished, that's going to catch people off guard. Like if your opponent maybe had a couple of quests, like maybe they're winning the race, so they just quest into a board that they know can just trade them out. And then you can play this and make the trades and then draw a couple of cards. That sounds pretty game changing. I like this as a spicy one-off because again, you always want to get to 6 ink, right? And the hope is that you're emptying your hand and you found a Demona and then you want to empty your hand again and find more. And I think at that point in the game, this is a perfectly reasonable card to just hop into. Like some boards you're going to prefer to play, and that's kind of the way Red Purple wants to play now isn't always to play the highest costed character you can. You do want to curve to 6, but after that, generally, you want to be like, it's why we're running a lot of 1-drops. You want to be able to flood the board as much as possible. That's what we mean by like going under, just presenting more threats than the opponent can reliably answer. So I do like the one-off David Xanatov. I think I slightly prefer the Ursulas. I do understand the Peter Pans, but I think on the draw in the mirror, they are significantly worse, but on the play, they perhaps just win you the game on the spot. And again, I like the one-off Timothy Q Mouse. And now let's talk about Hercules. 4 cost uninkable, 5/3, quest for 2. This character can't be dealt damage unless he's being challenged. And while he's exerted, your other hero characters can't be dealt damage unless they're being challenged. Just so you're aware, Peter Pan, hero, Sisu, hero, Dumbo, hero, and Elsa, hero. And by gold, Michael, does it come up and is it relevant? So yeah, it was a bit of a meme, my hatred for this card because I pulled so many. And I did not at the time see the light. And let's be clear, I still think this is a bad card. It's a necessary card for Red Purple, but maybe not entirely. Let's talk through it. Purple Steel, for a while, and even now, is one of, if not the best deck in the game. And one of the key cards they have that make them so powerful is Strength of a Raging Fire. And the problem is, our 4-drop always gets smashed. Or our 3-drop. Like, so if we're on the play, we get to play a 4-drop before them. So we play our Genie or our Iago, but they've already set up their 3-drop. They can just play Strength of a Raging. They play another character. So they've got 4 bodies on the board, and they just pop anything that we play on turn 4. And we usually just lose the game there and then. And that's on the play. That's on the play, right? Like on the play, there was still some room for skill expression to a degree. But like you generally just lost there and then. We can't let that keep happening. Hercules is a way around this because he can't be dealt damage unless he's being challenged. So no strength, no thunderbolt. You can still move damage counters onto him. So he hates Bell and he will take the Cheshire Cat. At least that's only 2 and he's got the 3 willpower. He will not avoid the damage from Malicious, Mean and Scary because that places a damage counter, which is not the same. But all of your typical action songs that do damage or things like a Vincenzo that does 3 damage, none of those are going to work on Hercules. So it is about establishing a 4-drop that they cannot touch. Now, don't get me wrong, and this is the thing that has me still hung up about Hercules, like one of the worst things about him, other than his uninkability, is on the draw, you play him on 4, they Elsa him, and they trade in their Hook or their Black Heron, whatever they've got that can hit for 3, and then you just cry, and that's awful. But at least now on the play, we have the line open to us of we play Hercules on 4, they play their 4-drop, they can't strength the Hercules. We get to Elsa down, well, like, obviously he's not evasive, so we can't hit their Genie if they were, like, whatever. Their 4-drop is more often than not an evasive character. But their 3-drop or their Calhoun, whichever we think is more significant, we get to take that out basically for free because we take no damage from the challenge. And then they still want to answer this Hercules as quickly as possible. So it does ensure a 2-for-1. So that was kind of the thought trail behind Hercules. And the other ability, which again is only when he's exerted, is he protecting your other heroes from damage, but absolutely comes up. Like, again, you can play your Elsa on 5, you exert something, your Hercules can go into something, and then if there's something else for your Elsa to go into, then she's not going to take any damage from that challenge. And at points later on in the game, just having a Peter Pan or a Dumbo that they can't just answer with their Lexington, that's his name, although of course again the Hercules needs to be exerted for you to have this ability, so if they've got something to take out the Hercules, it's only a small wall, it's not the hardest one to get over, but it absolutely can come up. But the primary use of course is as I've just described, because we don't want to lose on their turn 4 to Strength or a Raging Fire. This is a nice stat line with Hercules. We can be hitting 6, which is super significant, and again with like if we get a Horseman pop, then that's going to raise him as well. 1 I do think is not enough. I played 2 against Bivens and I was so tempted to play 3 because I'm like, I only want this for the Steel matchup, and I'm running 2 and I'm just not going to see it, and then I've got this like terrible card in my deck. I only ran 2. Luckily I saw it in games 2 and 3, so I got very lucky there, to be honest. So I do think 1 is low, but you're going to see all of these decks are including Hercules, so that's the reasoning behind him. But yeah, the fact that this deck is slightly more aggressive with the Peter Pans, again, Ursula seems very annoying. They never come back for Purple Steel or the Mirror. I can see why this version of the deck maybe had the edge, but overall, I'm just so hyped to see it come in first place. So huge congratulations to you. Going to second place, also on that Ruby Amethyst, we have Ben Hansen. Now, this looks a lot much more stock, in my opinion. We've got the high count of 1-drops. I didn't go into too much detail looking at the last list about the 1-drops, but again, you want to be able to play multiple, like from turn 6, after turn 6, you want to be able to play multiple characters from your hand, right? And sometimes even before then, onto like turn 4 or 5, it might be more beneficial to go wide. So we want access to those characters, and again, they all serve very different purposes. Tinkerbell can shut down the opposing quest, things like Hook from questing, and even their Palace Guard, because you threaten a curve into Lumiere for a trade, which they probably would just give you the trade, but it's nice to get those characters off the board against Purple Steel specifically, because you want to skew their strength numbers. So this is just our better one at challenging. On the play, you're always going to want to play Palace Guard. Again, we want to go under. We want to be questing as much as possible the first few turns of the game, especially against these slower decks. So high count of 1-drops, you'll love to see it. Only 8 3-drops, I do think is a little low. Like I said earlier, like even the 2-drop slot where I'm only running 8 has felt a little bit low. So I would like to see a couple more 3s in here. Maybe a White Rose or a Peter Pan, but as long as you get your curve, then it is fine. Traditional 4-drops, and you see here the 3 copies of Hercules, which really speaks to the importance of wanting to see it in the relevant matchups. And we are playing 3 Hades, who wasn't in the last deck, and I didn't go into that. He wasn't on the screen, so I didn't have it actively in my head. But Hades kind of contradicts Demona a little bit, because again, you want to empty your hand. Now, post Demona, Hades is still great. But yeah, you want to be emptying your hand to get the full efficiency of Demona. Now, don't get me wrong, I still ran 2 and will potentially go back up to 3. But I'm just explaining the reasoning why the first place list might have chose to not include Hades. But we're seeing 3 copies here, which I would still want to play at least a couple of copies of this. Again, even if it does read just draw 2 cards, then sometimes that's the gas you need. Maybe you didn't hit Demona. And if both you and your opponent curved and you have a bit of a frozen board state, then the 2 cards that this Hades gives you, like, is sometimes just enough gas to just push you over the edge. We're seeing those 3 libraries and 2 copies of magical maneuvers, where you can return a character of yours to your hand to exert chosen character. Exerting opposing characters is always good. We've got the Hercules that's going to take advantage of that. The Horseman triggers. I'm not hugely keen on only 3 Horsemen. I get it. Especially because you want to make room for the 3rd Hercules. And like, this is 14 Uninkables, which is what I played against Bivens, which was higher than I wanted, really. But the Uninkables seem so important. But yeah, you have to see this Horseman on the turn they play a Genie. You just really need to, and it's so important. 3 is probably fine. Again, did fine for Ben all the way to 2nd place. But yeah, I've not felt comfortable enough going below 4 yet. But again, I get it. If you want a hard cap at 14 Uninkables, then the spot doesn't come out of the Diablo or the Genie. So it's just one of those things. But yeah, I like the maneuvers. Again, we've got some good coming to play abilities here. And again, more than anything, just exerting opposing characters is very, very good. So yeah, awesome looking list. Congratulations to Ben. And our final Ruby Amethyst list in top 8, we have Eric. A little bit of spice here. We are playing 4 copies of Mother Gothel, Vain Sorceress. 3 cost inkable, 1/4, quest for 1. Whenever one of your characters challenges, you can move 1 damage counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character. This is a card that they do not want to exert into. Now, I used to, not be very high on this card, and I made a video where I was like, please tell me what I'm missing here, and a lot of people gave some, very good reason to want to try her. So I tried her out, I played about 30-40 games, and I was like, when they turn sideways into her, she's top tier. I can see why you want to run her, what she opens up. It's kind of broken. But the good players are just never exerting into her. Obviously, we've always had Elsa, where we can kind of force that. But more often than not, it felt very low impact against, the best players. But in a world where we not only have Elsa now, but Demona, so we can really take advantage of this ability, I think she's gotten a lot better. And again, it's sometimes even before Demona or Elsa, sometimes they're going to have to turn sideways into something, or if they don't, they're just giving up too much tempo, or they're letting you quest too aggressively. So sometimes you force Mother Gothel back into being useful. But I think on just the Demona curve, to then take advantage of it, it is super good. So I love the inclusion. And we're even running 2 copies of Madam Mim Elephant, which I think is going to be, it's going to make your purple steel match up even better. 2 Hercules, 4 Hades, we've got those 4 horsemen for Demona. And we're seeing Next Stop Olympus, 2 cost inkable action. If you have a character with 5 strength or more in play, you pay 2 ink less to play this action, so effectively free. And you can ready chosen character, they can't quest for the rest of the turn. The next time they challenge another character this turn, gain 1 lore. So at worst, you're keeping something safe. At best, you're re-readying that Hercules or whatever, and you're making a second challenge and gaining a lore for it. Again, you're hopefully playing this for free if you've got a character of 5 strength or more, which is already the Hercules, the Demona. But if you've got Lumiere on the board, then your Riago and your Headless Horseman, and then your Sisu could already potentially be a 5 strength character, but the Lumiere is going to increase the odds of that. And if you've got horseman triggers, that's going to increase the strength as well. So I actually think this could be online a lot. Not necessarily what I would do with the 2 slots, but Eric is a player that I do know. We have done secret Lorcana testing together, and I know they're very talented. So maybe I need to take a second look at Next Stop Olympus, but nonetheless, a fantastic run. Congratulations to them. Alright, that was definitely the longest part of the video, but how long's it been since we've been able to do a thorough red-purple breakdown? Some of these decks that we've talked about a lot on the channel recently, I'm not going to break down in its entirety. If you're a newer player, please check the description for the first video I made this meta where I broke down every single card in a deck. But for now, a brief look at Blurple. In top 4, we have Justin. Now, this deck is card for card, the same list that ran CCQ Prague. Ran by Ying, I believe, and Justin on their social media did credit that list of being the inspiration. A lot of traditional Blurple things going on here. Only 1 copy of Cheshire Cat and only 2 copies of Elephant, but we need to make room for some of these texts that we want to play, such as 1 copy of Sudden Scared, but chose an opposing character into the player's Inkwell face down, and then you ramp that player as well. So a heavy price to pay, but removal is just good. Obviously, we prefer Hades a lot of the time, but we have access to this earlier against aggressive decks. If you see a Tiana or something like that, then you're going to be very keen to just sudden scare it, even if you are just ramping them. And in mirrors or any sort of attrition war, just having an extra removal card is going to be more beneficial than giving 2 ink to them is going to be beneficial to them. Or more than 2, to be fair. If it's you could ramp them 3 if that card has a card under it. Playing 1 jump just to increase those turn 2 ramp odds. 3 copies of Junior Woodchuck Guidebook. No Tamatoas in here, but just a nice draw 2 card essentially. A couple of copies of Magical Maneuvers. Again, we want to exert those characters down. And replaying Bells and Demonas and Hades sounds pretty good. 3 copies of Monstro to wipe the board. Blurple will continue to have a place in our meta, I have no doubt. So congratulations to Justin for bringing it to top 4. And our other top 4 deck, we have Shadorks, another person who I do secret Lorcana testing with. But dude, I never know if I'm saying your name right, bro. I hope I am. But nonetheless, top 4 with some Amber Emerald Dogs. This is another deck that we broke down very thoroughly in the prior video. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but a general overview. Tramp is a pretty good card, the Street Smart Dog, who you pay 1 ink less to play him for every other character you have on board. And then you draw a card for each other character that you had on board, and then discard those many cards. So you're not actually gaining any cards, but you're milling through your deck. You're finding important pieces. So a card like Tramp wants us to go nice and wide. Even the baby Tramp wants to give extra strength to one of our characters based on how wide our board is. We are playing 2 copies of Under the Sea to wipe opposing 2 strength or less characters, and we actually have a way of getting more characters into that range with 3 copies of Della's Moon Lullaby, a 2-cost inkable action. A chosen opposing character gets -2 strength until the start of your next turn and draw a card. So getting characters into the range for Under the Sea, maybe then that character isn't able to make an efficient challenge into one of our questers, especially because it lasts to the start of our next turn. That's very, very good. And it's drawing us a card, and nearly all of our 2-drops we are perfectly happy for them to sing as opposed to quest. The only exception is Lilo, but Mowgli, Go-Go, Tramp, Ursula were perfectly happy for all of these characters to sing a song. 3 Emerald Chromacon to hopefully keep the board tempo. We've got 1 Rajar in here as a bodyguard. 2 copies of the Floodborn Webby, who isn't really the star Webby in this deck. Obviously the 1-drop who on play gives chosen character +1 strength this turn is the main temptation, because we boost up our lady to 1 strength and then pack of her own triggers, which gets her up to 2 strength. So then you only need to play 1 more character, and she is 3 strength and questing for 3, which is pretty good. But yeah, if you're going to run this for Count of Webby, then I see no reason to not include a couple of the Floodborn. So yeah, deck looking really good, really benefiting from the new Mowgli to make your opponent reveal their hand and discard a non-character of their choice. And to be honest, a lot of big bodies out there for Go-Go to take advantage of. I imagine Go-Go got her lore worth this tournament, so a huge congratulations to Shadows. And going into top 8, our other dogs deck, we have Ivy Slime, another person I do secret Lorcana testing with. A very similar list. We've got 3 copies of the Webby Vanderquack Floodborn, 3 copies of the Chromacon again. Yeah, a lot of similarities here. Dogs just still be very good, especially against these slower decks. Like, against anything blue, the Dogs players are going to have a good time. So, list that's good. Congratulations to you. And then the final list that I have from the top 8 of this event, we have Ryan Miles, a player that I've never met, but I'm familiar with. I've seen their stuff online, and they're very experienced. So shout out to you, Ryan, securing top 8 with Purple Steel, which again, seemingly the best deck in the format at the moment. Again, it has such an aggressive curve open to it, where it can quest aggressively. It wins the early game more often than not when it comes to challenging. We empty our hand, we're refueling with Docks, Yzmas. If our opponent's playing Demona, then maybe they're refueling us. And we're playing this incredible song package, 4 strength and 4 copies of Thunderbolt. Interestingly, this deck making room for 3 copies of Goliath as well, who's been seeing a lot of play in Blue Steel. 6-cost inkable, 6/5 quest for 2. At the end of each player's turn, if they have more than 2 cards in their hand, they discard to 2. If they had fewer than 2, they draw to 2. And of course, that's Stone by Day ability. Yeah, seeing a lot of use in Blue Steel, which again wants to ramp, empty its hand, play a Goliath, and have this be the fuel into those big characters like your Tinkerbells, your Jasmines, your Vincenzos, your Hades, things like that. And I think it's perfectly reasonable for Purple Steel to also benefit from this. Again, it's another deck that wants to empty its hand and then just be applying pressure and gas to the board, especially with this wide song package. So while not the norm, I can absolutely respect the inclusion, and I actually really like the 2 Olaf helping hand. 1 cost inkable 2, 1 quest for 1. When he leaves play, you can return a character of yours to your hand. Obviously, coming to play abilities are always good, but returning a Dock to your hand in this deck in particular, that sounds pretty nice. Or even returning like a Goliath before it benefits your opponent, because you play the Goliath, you benefit from it. You play Goliath, empty your hand preferably, you benefit from it straight away. And then the catch-22 is if your opponent answers the Goliath, they don't benefit from it. Maybe they don't need to. Maybe they've got a wide grip. But if they don't have many cards in their hand and they answer the Goliath because they want to stop you benefiting, then they don't get the benefit either. Maybe they take out the Olaf and you can return the Goliath to your hand, so then they don't draw cards. Ryan, if you're watching, I don't know if you are, but if you are, did that come up? I'd love to know. So I like the inclusion of Olaf. Purple Steel doing Purple Steel things. Looks good. Congratulations to Ryan. And the final deck that we're going to take a look at, the one top 16 list that I have available from Scotty Markison. We got some Ruby Sapphire. We're doing the ramp things with T-Pose and Sail the Azure at Seas. We're playing Visions and Develop Your Brains. We've got that one sudden scare for some extra removal. And we've got a wide item package. Sapphire Coil to lower the strength of a character by 2 every time you ink. Mushu's Rocket, which gives rush to a character when you play it. And then you can pay 2 ink and banish it to give rush to another character. It can be across different turns, of course. This is an item. 3 medallion weights where you can trigger it, you can exert it, pay 2, and a chosen character of yours gets +2 strength, and you draw a card whenever they make a challenge. And 4 copies of Ink Runner, which is a 2-cost inkable, draw a card, and you can also exert it and pay 1 ink to give a character alert. And to support these items, we're running 4 copies of Mats of a Mystery, 4-cost inkable. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You would put a character and an item into your hand. Now, we do also be ramping with Cinderella. We want to be going at 2, 4, 6 more often than not. Cinderella would love to sing Might Solve a Mystery and find us a character and an item. And the problem with this deck, as you can see, is absolutely card draw. Vision of the Future and Develop are going to help us to find key pieces, but card draw is what we're missing. Medallion Weights is the only real way that we can draw cards, but there's no guarantee that you're going to hit it, find it at the right time. No guarantee you're going to fit it into your curve. No guarantee your opponent's going to give you the value for it before they've made a wide board and then they just quest everything across a 2-turn clock, and you don't always get to take advantage of medallion weights, but it's there for the occasions that we can. It can just be ink. If you're playing Might Solve a Mystery and finding a character and then you're ink for the next turn, then great. Ink Runner obviously is another way of drawing cards. It's like the ink Runner is just replacing itself, but it's helping you dig through the deck. And again, another item for Might Solve a Mystery. The Sapphire Coil is actually really, really interesting because obviously lowering their strength is good just for challenges, but we're running 4 copies of the Headless Horseman, so obviously now if you ink and then play your Horseman, then you can banish a character with up to 4 strength. And later in the game, if you can ink twice with a Sail or a Tipo or a Cinderella or a Kida, then you could potentially Horseman a 6 strength or less character, so that is potentially really insane. And because of the Sapphire Coil, we're also running a Sisu who can banish a character of 1 strength or less. So you ink, play Sisu, you're banishing anything that had at least 3 strength. So that in itself is significant. We've got 4 Maui Shark here, a great offensive character, lots of actions for him to potentially get back. And he will love the Mushu's Rocket if we play him on a 7 ink turn to be able to play. The Shark is always the strongest when your opponent, when it isn't already on board. Your opponent can potentially still read that it's coming, but if it's on board, they know it's coming. But if you can play the Mushu and then immediately play the Rocket, or maybe you've got 8 ink and you played your Mushu Rocket turns ago, and you've got the 2 ink to ban it to trigger the Hitch a Ride ability to give rush to your Maui Shark. That's pretty awesome. And of course, because we're ramping or playing for Maleficent Dragon, we're playing for Hades. So if our high end is fantastic, if we can make the game go long and keep our opponent at bay when it comes to lore, then late game we should be winning more often than not, to be honest. The problem is getting there is because we're such a slow deck. And yeah, I briefly mentioned the Kida. If you curve this way instead of going 2, 4, 6 with Cinderella, if you go 2 into Kida, then the next turn you get to play your Horseman. Hopefully you fit Sapphire Coil into the curve somewhere on turn 2. But yeah, you get to play your 5-drop and then you trigger Kida, and then the next turn you're playing a Hades. Or you're playing a Shark and a Mushu's Rocket. So I really like this list. I would like to see at least 1 more copy of Mushu's Rocket. I think it unlocks a real ceiling. So I would love I think I would probably lower an Ink Runner. I think you want to keep your item count high enough that Might Solve a Mystery is max rolling more often than not. But yeah, I think maybe -1 Ink Runner, +1 Mushu's Rocket. Other than that, adore this list, and great to see Red Blue doing something. So a huge congratulations to Scotty. So overall, a pretty diverse top cut for SCG Con, but one extreme to the other, we go over to Questor in Poland. Not quite as diverse. We have 5 purple steel and 3 blue steel. And the video's going along, but it shouldn't take me long to get through these because we've done the basic overview for both of these decks. But we will, of course, look at all of them and address any techs. So in first place, we have Dimbar. A huge congratulations to you. A lot more players taking on the Frank Carsten mindset of playing a lot more 1s and 2s and 3s and having a wide wider toolbox. We've got a couple of copies of Timothy, 1 Madam Mim, 3 copies of that cat, 2 copies of Tinkerbell, who I think should be gaining popularity in Purple Steel piles, to be honest. 2 Thunderbolt to go with the strengths, and we're running 1 copy of Pluto Steel Champion, 5 cost Inkable, 5/5 quest for 2. During your turn, whenever one of your steel characters banishes another character in a challenge, gain 2 lore. That's pretty spicy. And whenever you play another steel character, you may banish chosen item. Emerald Chromacon is the main item you're going to see. Obviously, we just talked about Sapphire Coil, but I don't expect you to see that a lot. I think Emerald Chromacon is going to be the one you see the most. But also, a couple of the purple piles are playing the Granorium, the 3 cost purple item that gives you Damona's Rush, and you gain lore when you exert opposing characters during your turn. So, a couple of potential items that you could get value from this. But really, it's just the surprise value if you're able to put down this Pluto on the turn where you already know that you can banish something with a Lexington or a Giant Cobra or a Calhoun, a Captain Hook, whatever, then I think that's just pretty spicy. So yeah, deck looks super nice. Congratulations to Dimba. Apologies for mispronunciation of names, but in second place we have Olawa. Also a bit of a toolbox build. We've got 2 copies of Nala in there for a bit more aggression. 2 copies of Damona 4-drop, who I actually meant to talk about during the red-purple section, because I think this could potentially be an inkable Hercules if you really don't want to run more uninkables, because it does a slightly similar job, just with the 6 willpower. It's going to be harder for them to strength on turn 4. But yeah, for that reason, I like the inclusion of this Damona. It's like similar use purpose to Hercules. It's harder to remove with strength for a Raging Fire on turn 4. And this Damona hitting for 6 hits like an absolute truck, and the 6 willpower, you're probably getting a 2-for-1 out of this, so I actually really like it. 3 copies of Jasmine Fearless Princess, who gets evasive during your turn, and you can discard a card to give her challenger 3. And again, we're a deck that's playing into Docs and Damonas and Goliaths. We see 1 copy of here, similar to Ryan Miles. So yeah, more and more of the purple steel decks essentially being purple piles, playing into the Frank Carsten mentality with lots of options, and it led this player to second place, so congratulations to them. In 4th place, we have Bartozg. I feel like that's a cool name, and I didn't do it justice. Again, the 1 Goliath, a couple of Jasmine, a couple of Nala, 1 Raja in here is just that additional 2-drop with a 3/3 stat line. But a lot of similarity, so congratulations to them. Also in top 4, we have M7 Bakzek. A slightly tighter list, 4 copies of Timothy, 4 copies of Tinkerbell, 1 Hypnotic Strength, again, answering those pesky illusions. And this one of Mare Wind Dancer, which Zach Bivens was playing against me and was so annoying. 4 cost down, uninkable, 5/7, quest for 1. Just stats, mate. Pure stats. And yeah, this was very annoying to play into, so I can absolutely understand why this is in the deck. But yeah, overall, I like this much tighter list, and I prefer strengths over, most players are playing both, but I don't think I'd run Thunderbolt in Purple Steel. I think it would just be strengths. But yeah, list looks good. Congratulations to them. And our last 3 lists are blue steel. Starting off with Terry. Again, we've done the basic breakdown. This version of the deck running 2 copies of Spooky Sight to put those 3 or less cost characters into their player's inkwell. So not being greedy against the potential aggro decks in the room. This incredible to high end, again, Goliath that's going to refuel us. And then Tinkerbell's, Hades, and Vincenzo's. And 4 copies of the Headless Horseman. We've got a pretty wide action package ourselves. So good odds that this Horseman is hitting for at least 4 damage anyway with the draw 3, discard 3. But if your opponent is also playing a blue deck, then this can get to 6-8 damage easily. Pleakley is another way to hyper ramp. 4 copies of Namari. Again, we want to be finding the Goliaths, finding the high cost characters. She's a great beat stick herself and is a princess for multiple triggers of Cinderella, as is Jasmine. And we're running 1 copy of Ink Runner. Sure. And 1 copy of Beyond the Horizon as another way of drawing and disrupting your opponent's draw. So yeah, super tight looking. Congratulations to Terry. Also in top 8, we have Northern. A lot of similarities. We're running 2 copies of Keeda in this list. 1 copy of that Pluto Steel Champion. Only 1 copy of Spooky Sight. I think is a little bit low, but definitely better than none. So kudos to you. That 9th turn 2 ramp card looks good. Congratulations to you. And our final deck list in top 8 of Quest Tour. Nope, not trying that one, but shout out to you, my friend. Also, the one-off Ink Runner. What don't I understand? I suppose it's just to give alert. Yeah, I suppose it's just to give alert. Okay, that's reasonable. And 3 copies of the Aerial Sonic Warrior, who I know DKP is very high on, and I like the inclusion, again, with the 1 jump, the strengths, the Thunderbolts, the Beyond the Horizons. Like, I will play as red-purple. I feel quite good about the blue-steel matchup. unless you put down this aerial, and then I feel a lot worse about it. Maybe I shouldn't say that. But yeah, like, as a red-purple player, this is probably one of the most annoying cards in the deck. I don't know, Horseman is also annoying. Like, Vincenzo isn't. We have our own Headless Horseman. Tinkerbell's annoying, but we can answer her, as can we Hades. But yeah, this aerial, like the 3/8, and like just how good she is at clearing up our board. Yeah, like, I think if you want to beat red-purple, I think this is a pretty good piece. So yeah, super good looking deck. Congratulations to them. And that is it. I'm kind of sorry for taking up half the video length, maybe more, with just talking about red-purple. But also when I said sorry, I was lying because I'm a dirty, stinking villain. But yeah, super great to see red-purple doing red-purple things. I genuinely think, like, we're back. I'm not saying, yo, S tier, best deck in format, but I think we absolutely have a place in the format. What are your thoughts on these deck lists? What was the spiciest thing in your opinion? And are you excited for the return of red-purple? I'll hear about it down below. But that's going to be it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you're brand new to the channel, please subscribe for all things Lorcana. Hit that like button to show support. And we'll see you soon.